I'm wondering, as a PhD in philosophy at Oxford, I wouldn't imagine are designing to go into finance yourself. What your plan?
Okay, so the question is, what are your plans, Will? Are you planning to go into finance yourself, or are you going on with your career in philosophy at Oxford?
Yeah, that's an absolutely great question. So I am giving as much as I can away, owing approximately everything I earn above £20,000, that's $30,000. And that'll be about £1.5 million over the course of my life. But it's still nothing compared to what I could do in finance. So why don't I do that? And it was something I seriously considered. But there is a kind of further consideration. So at the moment, I'm now talking to about 300 young people who are all thinking about whether to pursue what sort of career they can pursue. If I convince just one other person to do this instead of me, well, that's my life's work. That's my entire impact. If I can convince many people, then I'm having like the impact over and over again. And similarly, even with Matt, he's going to donate. He's going to save hundreds of lives through his donations. I expect him to save even more through the people who he convinces to do the same as him. And so, and that's all things considered where I think I can have the most impact.
So then why? Obviously, we can't universalize this, or else we'd have 300 PhDs of philosophy at Oxford. But why then shouldn't we all go into education?
Yeah, it's a great.
So why shouldn't everybody follow your route, in other words, and try to spread this idea?
Yeah, no, another great question. And again, I am keen to emphasize earning to give is not necessarily the best career path. It's a good way to begin thinking about things. And if you can so you end up with a coordination problem, basically. So, and we have this within, so this general movement's called effective altruism. And we have this problem where we've got many people who just want to do the most good, and you need some people in order to pay for the salaries of other people, to convince more people to pay for the salary, to earn to give, and so on. You might worry about this kind of regress issue, never actually achieving anything ultimately, but it does mean that you've no longer got to think about where can just I as an individual do the most good. If it was just one person you were thinking about, maybe earning to give would be the best. But you've got to think now, compared with all the other people who are also trying to do the most good, where's my comparative advantage? And that actually means the follow your passion, or more accurately, do what you're comparatively best at, does come back into the picture. So it'll mean that for some of you, earning to give will be the best thing to do. You can spread ideas of cost effectiveness more with the money. But for other people, yeah, being able to influence others to do similar things or even better things can be the most high impact thing you can do. And it's going to end up just being determined on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, I saw a hand in the balcony. Matt, are you going to work less hard for the money, given that you're not spending it on yourself, that you're giving, well, half of it anyway, that you're giving away? Does that mean that you'll be less successful in the competitive financial area where people do work extremely hard?
Yeah, I think that is a real worry. Is my thing
Yeah, I think you're okay.
Yeah. I think that is a real worry. I mean, one thing is I get really excited about, I always calculate, oh, I think I saved like this many lives, right? And I get pumped. So I sort of do want to have more money to give it away. But I do agree that it does make it less of an incentive to work hard. I guess part of the reason I don't give more is for this reason. A lot of people say oh, well, if you really believe these arguments, why don't you give 90%, right? You'd still be very wealthy by world standards. And I think well, it's going to make it more likely that I burn out. I'm going to be less excited about working hard. Sort of all these things will be much bigger deal. So I've given myself the 50% threshold and then said you can spend the rest of the money on whatever you want. Go blow it, and then.
So you still have an incentive to raise your income, because
right.
At least 50 cents in every dollar that you get extra, you're going to be able to spend on yourself.
Yeah. Also, the 50% number isn't totally arbitrary, because there's this weird tax rule, which is you can only give, the first 50% you give is tax-free, but then after that, you have to give with after-tax money, which is weird. But.
There was a second hand in the gallery. Yeah. The suggestion is that if everybody listens to you, then we'll have a brain drain, all the most intelligent people going into finance. So I guess in the case of Matt, we lost a philosophy graduate, possible likely philosophy professor, because Matt was doing philosophy before and could have got into good graduate schools. And I guess we'll lose people from other areas. Is that a problem?
Yeah, so if only I were that persuasive. And that's a serious point. So if everyone were to, so I'm now able to talk to the entire United States, and maybe I'd give a slightly different message, because if everyone were to go into finance, then yeah, exactly, there'd be no one to go into the nonprofit sector. There'd also be no one to drive trains or harvest crops or do any of the other things that are necessary. But the argument isn't to merely go into finance, it's to do what you think does the most good. And where at the moment, given that idealistic young people tend to go into the nonprofit sector, tend not to earn to give, that means the difference you're having on the margin is much greater by going into finance. If it gets to the stage where half of all financiers are giving very large amounts of money, then the arguments, the kind of way the impact falls might be very different, because you'd have a comparatively bigger difference in the nonprofit sector. The wage difference would also be much smaller, and have comparatively less difference in the financial sector. So in that sense, the argument's self-correcting.
And I'm sure you'd like to thank both of our guests for...
Thank you.